Today, we are going to talk about unbelievable stories of people who cheated death. We post new videos every Tuesday and Friday, so stay tuned. Number 1. On the morning of October 30th, 2003, Dorothy Fletcher, a 67-year-old grandmother from Liverpool, England, woke up with a sense of excitement tinged with nervousness. Retired and living a peaceful life, Dorothy was about to witness a cherished family event she had long been waiting for, her daughter's wedding in Florida. As the sun streamed through her windows, Dorothy sat with a cup of tea, contemplating the day ahead. She had meticulously picked out a gift for the wedding, a beautiful set of silverware for her daughter. It was wrapped and ready, sitting next to her neatly packed suitcase. Dorothy spent the morning going through her usual routine. Her thoughts wandered to the wedding, the family she was about to reunite with, and the joyous occasion that awaited her. She checked her list one last time, ensuring she hadn't forgotten anything important. The time ticked by, and soon her granddaughter arrived to take her to the airport. The drive was filled with chatter about the wedding preparations and the excitement of the family gathering. Upon reaching the airport, Dorothy felt a mix of emotions: happiness, a little anxiety about the flight, and eagerness to see her daughter walk down the aisle. Boarding the plane, she settled into her seat, unaware that this flight would be unlike any other she had experienced. She glanced out the window, lost in her thoughts, as the plane taxied onto the runway and took off towards her destination. As the flight smoothly ascended, Dorothy Fletcher settled comfortably into her seat, gazing out at the clouds drifting by. The cabin was filled with the soft hum of conversation and the occasional rustle of newspapers. Flight attendants moved gracefully down the aisle, attending to passengers' needs with a smile. For a while, everything seemed perfectly normal. Dorothy, lost in her thoughts about the upcoming wedding, hardly noticed the passage of time. But unexpectedly, her serene journey took a worrying turn. First, there was a subtle tightness in her chest, an unusual discomfort that she tried to brush off as mere anxiety. However, the sensation quickly intensified, morphing into a sharp pain that gripped her arm. Confusion and fear crept in as her surroundings began to blur. Dorothy attempted to call for help, but her voice faltered. In a matter of moments, the situation escalated. The tightness in her chest became unbearable, a crushing weight that seemed to squeeze the breath out of her. Panic set in as she clutched her arm, the pain now radiating with relentless intensity. Her granddaughter fellow passengers noticed her distress, and a murmur of concern rippled through the cabin. Just as the flight attendant hurried over, Dorothy's strength gave way. She collapsed in her seat, her body succumbing to the overwhelming pain. The once calm and ordinary flight was suddenly thrust into a state of emergency as the realization dawned that one of their own was in dire need of medical assistance. But what happened next was something no one saw coming. In a moment of urgency, the flight attendant's voice echoed through the cabin, calling out for any doctors on board. For a brief, heart-stopping moment, there was complete silence. The attendant and Dorothy's granddaughter shared a look of growing anxiety, fearing the worst, that there was no immediate medical help available. But then, in an almost cinematic twist of fate, not just one, but 15 doctors stood up. As it turns out, these weren't just any doctors. They were cardiologists, all headed to a cardiology conference in Orlando. The group of specialists swiftly moved into action, surrounding Dorothy with a level of expertise that was nothing short of miraculous given the circumstances. They worked with precision and calmness, assessing her condition and providing the critical care needed to stabilize her. The grandmother's life hung in the balance, but she was in the most capable hands possible. Dorothy Fletcher's life was remarkably saved thanks to the immediate and expert care of the cardiologists on board. Administering emergency treatment at 30,000 feet, they managed to stabilize her condition, averting what could have been a tragic outcome. The plane was diverted to ensure she received further medical care, and thanks to the doctor's intervention, Dorothy was able to recover and eventually continue her journey to Florida. This remarkable story highlights not just the unpredictability of life, but also the incredible impact of having the right help at the right time. Number 2. Dan Saunders, a 29-year-old bartender, started his day in a modest apartment that spoke volumes of his simple life. The morning routine was a silent testament to his struggles, with overdue bills quietly occupying space on the coffee table. He prepared himself, not just for the day, but for the challenges that came with his job at a local bar. The morning light did little to brighten the modest room, reflecting off surfaces that told stories of better days. With a heavy sigh, he prepared for another long day at the bar, where he worked as a bartender. The bar, often crowded and buzzing with activity, was a stark contrast to his quiet morning. Amidst the noise and the constant demand for drinks, Dan navigated his workplace with a practiced ease. Yet, the tips he earned barely seemed enough, reflecting the financial strain that shadowed his life at this age. This hustle was a far cry from the life he had envisioned for himself at 29, marked more by relentless toil than the fulfillment of his aspirations. As the day went on, Dan's frustrating day at the bar was interrupted by a call that flickered a ray of excitement. His group of friends were out for drinks and invited Dan to join them. Despite how disappointing Dan's financial prospects were, Dan always felt lucky because he had a group of amazing friends who were always supportive of him and lifted his spirits whenever Dan felt hopeless. Excited to finally get a much-needed break, he quickly wrapped up his shift and headed out to meet them, relishing the prospect of a night filled with laughter and camaraderie. For the first time that day, Dan felt a genuine sense of eagerness, looking forward to the evening's escape. At the bar with his friends, Dan realized he was out of cash. He excused himself and headed to the nearest ATM, a routine transaction he thought little of at the time. As he approached the machine, everything seemed normal, but what was about to happen would turn his ordinary evening into something extraordinary. Little did he know, this ATM visit was about to change the course of his life in a way he could never have imagined. At the ATM, Dan keyed in his PIN and requested a withdrawal, expecting the usual transaction. To his surprise, the machine dispensed the cash despite his account being low on funds. Curious and a bit incredulous, he tried withdrawing again. The ATM, operating unusually, kept dispensing cash, defying his account's actual balance. As he stood there, a mix of bewilderment and temptation washed over him, and after a bit of trial and error, the 29-year-old realized he'd found a loophole and ran with it. Seizing the moment, Dan tested the limits of this newfound glitch. He continued withdrawing money, astonished as each transaction was approved. In those late hours, he found himself in possession of a considerable sum, far beyond what he could earn even after his lifetime's work as a bartender. This accidental discovery quickly escalated from a curious anomaly to a gateway for a lifestyle he had never experienced. In a bender that lasted some 5 months, Dan managed to spend around $1.6 million of the bank's money. He threw lavish parties, chartered private jets, and paid off his friends' university fees. However, this surreal period was short-lived. But police eventually caught up with him, leading to guilt, a voluntary confession, and legal consequences. Number 3. Ernest Hemingway, a luminary of American literature, was known for his powerful prose and adventurous life. Born in Oak Park, Illinois, Hemingway initially made his mark as a reporter for the Kansas City Star. His writing style, marked by understatement and stripped-down sentences, would later define his influential novels. Hemingway's works, such as The Old Man and the Sea, A Farewell to Arms, and The Sun Also Rises, are celebrated for their exploration of themes like stoicism and masculinity. His contributions to literature earned him the Nobel Prize in 1954, cementing his legacy as one of the greatest writers of the 20th century. While Ernest Hemingway is renowned for his literary achievements, a lesser-known aspect of his life is his remarkable series of encounters with death. Hemingway's life was marked not just by literary triumphs, but also by an uncanny ability to escape life-threatening situations. Back in 1918, when was an 18-year-old boy, he worked as an ambulance driver for the American Red Cross during the thick of World War I on the Italian front. Born and raised in Oak Park, Illinois, Hemingway had left behind his early career as a reporter for the Kansas City Star to join the war effort in Europe. That fateful night, Hemingway was in the trenches, offering a small comfort to weary soldiers, handing out chocolates to Italian troops sheltering in a dugout. The atmosphere, tense yet routine, was suddenly shattered by the deafening roar of an Austrian mortar shell. In a moment, the world turned to chaos. The explosion was devastating. Hemingway, caught in the blast, was rendered unconscious, buried under the rubble of the collapsed dugout. Shrapnel tore through his body, leaving wounds on his right foot, knee, thighs, scalp, and hand. Tragically, 2 Italian soldiers near him were killed instantly. Despite his severe injuries, Hemingway's spirit remained unyielding. Regaining consciousness amidst the carnage, he mustered the strength to carry a badly wounded Italian soldier to safety. His actions, driven by courage and selflessness, earned him the esteemed Croce de Guerra, an Italian Medal of Valor, recognizing his bravery and service. This harrowing experience on the Italian front marked the beginning of Hemingway's lifelong brush with death and danger, shaping the man who would become one of the 20th century's most influential writers. Hemingway's literary career blossomed in the 1920s, marked by many classics. His work, often inspired by his own life experiences, explored themes of love, war, loss, and resilience, resonating deeply with readers worldwide. His adventurous spirit led him to various corners of the globe, from the bullfighting rings of Spain to the battlefields of the Spanish Civil War, each experience enriching his writing. On the personal front, Hemingway's life was equally eventful. His first marriage to Hadley Richardson ended in divorce, followed by successive marriages to Pauline Pfeiffer, Martha Gellhorn, and ultimately Mary Welsh, whom he married in 1946. Each relationship profoundly impacted his life and work, providing both inspiration and turmoil. In late 1953, Ernest Hemingway, the literary titan known for his rugged adventures, set off on a journey to the heart of Africa, accompanied by his wife, Mary. The years leading up to the African safari were a mix of critical acclaim, including winning the Pulitzer Prize for The Old Man and the Sea, and personal struggles with health issues. These experiences, both enriching and challenging, shaped Hemingway into the complex, larger-than-life figure who ventured into the African wilderness. The African safari was a pursuit Hemingway looked forward to for its raw encounter with nature's unbridled force. As their flight departed from Nairobi, the couple anticipated an expedition filled with the thrills of the African wild. As their plane, a single-engine Cessna, glided over the vast expanse of the African landscape, they witnessed a world untamed and boundless. Below them stretched the endless savannas, dotted with herds of roaming wildlife. The dense jungles of the Serengeti whispered tales of the unseen and the unknown. This was Africa in its purest form, a land that Hemingway had long yearned to immerse himself in. But fate had other plans. Amidst this picturesque journey, their aircraft began to falter. The engine's reassuring hum turned into a distressing stutter. Hemingway and Mary exchanged anxious glances as the pilot battled to control the failing machine. Then, in an instant, the plane plummeted, crashing into the dense Ugandan jungle. The impact was thunderous, a violent collision between man's creation and nature's domain. The plane barely missed hitting a flock of ibises during the crash landing. Amid the wreckage, Hemingway and Mary, though injured, miraculously survived. Forced to choose between a sandpit where 6 crocodiles lay basking in the sun or an elephant track through thick scrub, the pilot chose the scrub, and the trio spent the night in the jungle, surrounded by elephants. Yet, the ordeal was far from over. The very next day, in a desperate attempt to reach medical aid, they boarded another aircraft. Tragically, this plane too met with disaster, crashing in a fiery heap shortly after takeoff. Both were seriously injured, although not quite badly enough to warrant the many newspaper headlines reporting their death. The crashes left Hemingway with grave injuries but did not dampen his indomitable spirit. Hemingway walked out of the jungle in high spirits, carrying a bunch of bananas and a bottle of gin, and was quoted saying, "My luck, she is running very good." Remarkably, reports of his death circulated globally, leading to the surreal experience of reading his own obituaries. These back-to-back crashes in the African wilderness added yet another chapter to Hemingway's life, a life characterized by its brushes with death and his relentless pursuit of adventure. Thank you for watching this video. For more content like this, stay tuned and subscribe to our channel. Stay safe, and until the next time.